Shumai guys, and welcome to the Life to the Full podcast, the podcast that helps you make the most of your time here on Earth. My name's Dav Morse, I'm your host. I am here to provide a little bit of inspiration, maybe a little bit of wisdom, so that you can have life to the full. Now, it was recently my birthday, 41. And as a little treat to myself, I thought to myself, I would love to make a list of 41 things that I have learnt in my 41 years here on Earth. And I thought I'd share that with you. Hopefully you'll get some benefit. So that's where we're at. I wanted to make a list of things that I've learnt over my 41 years of life. Something that I could look back on maybe in 10 years' time and think, well, didn't I know a lot? Or maybe, didn't I know so little? But it's something that maybe my 20-year-old self would have been able to appreciate. Maybe something to encourage my 15-year-old self. And so I wanted to share this in the hopes and the prayers that it will encourage and inspire you to think about life differently, maybe think about something you haven't thought about before, maybe send you down a rabbit hole or two. I feel like that's mostly my job, sending you down the rabbit holes to things that you could do to improve your life. And it may get a little bit long, 41 things. Even if I did 1 minute per thing, that's 41 minutes. I might split it into 2 podcasts. We'll see how we're going. So these 41 lessons, I'll just get straight into them. Some of them are lessons that were taught to me as a child, some that I've learnt myself, and some that I've learnt from observing other people. They're roughly in 4 categories. They are life lessons about people, life lessons about the world, life lessons about money, and life lessons about God. So they're in no particular order other than the order that they came to me when I was thinking about it. I did find it a enjoyable and beneficial thing to think about. So here we go. Number 1. God is good all the time. This is something that I was taught by my parents when I was a little boy. God is good all the time. It doesn't matter about our life circumstances. We can be having the best time in the world. We can be having a really, really tough time. But that does not change God's nature. He is good all of the time. And that is something that I have lent on and supported me through tough times in my life. And it's something that I can enjoy celebrating when times are good. Number 2. It is better to create than to consume. Now, I've done an entire podcast episode on this, the benefits that come from creating over consuming. And if you haven't listened to that, I'll link it in the notes below, so go back and listen to that entire podcast episode. Consuming is easy to do. We can consume food far easier than we can create food. We consume content online, watching Netflix, watching videos, watching YouTube, listening to podcasts. We can do that so easily, and it leaves us open to just accepting other people's thoughts. It makes us flabby physically, flabby mentally, and being able to create something is infinitely better. It's so much better to sit down and write and create a YouTube video, an Instagram reel, a post on Instagram, a X post. It's so much better to sit down and create and think than to just simply mindlessly scroll. It is so much better to create something with your hands, to create bread, to create a silver ring, something that I haven't done, but I'd love to do. I've seen blacksmiths stick things in the fire, hammering down, creating knives. And that seems to me to be such a satisfying way to live. It is way more satisfying to create than to consume. It is better for the environment, it's better for us, it's better for people around us. We can provide value when we create. Number 3, happiness is overrated. It's better to live a holy life than a happy one. One of the things that I notice about society at the moment is society seems to be obsessed with being happy. Ooh, if you do something that makes you feel happy, that's okay. Happiness should be your number one measurer of your quality of life. As long as you're happy, it doesn't matter. I find that inherently self-centered, and it means nothing for providing value for other people. Now, you may want to substitute the word holy for meaningful or moral or caring. Some other word that doesn't make you the center of your life. Sometimes doing the right thing is better than the thing that might make you happy, quote unquote. And what you really realize is that doing the hard thing, doing the thing that is necessary, doing the thing that is providing value for other people, doing the thing that God wants, is actually the thing that brings happiness anyway. Number 4, life isn't guaranteed. I am firmly now, I would say, into the middle third of my life. I'm hoping to live to 102 so that I can celebrate 80 years of marriage with my beautiful wife. But that puts me in the middle third. I might even be more than halfway, who knows. A quick search online tells me that about 3.4% of people don't make it to their 40th birthday. I know of 3 people in my school year, at school when I was there from year 7 to 11, 3 people have died since I left school. And so if life isn't guaranteed, we need to make the absolute most of it whilst we still have time here on earth. Hug people, love people, enjoy food and drink, because you're not guaranteed your next birthday. Lesson number 5. It doesn't matter how much time or money or possessions or things or amount you can lift at the gym or how fast you can go on your bike, there will always be people that have more than you, can do more than you, and that's something we have to accept. Number 6, we're all playing the money game, whether we realize it or not. Again, this is something I did an entire podcast episode back a few years ago. We are all playing the money game, whether we realize it or not. If you don't realize you're playing the money game, then you need to first of all realize that you are. If you are going to work, to earn money, to fund your life, to buy food, to go on holiday, to buy coats, to buy t-shirts, to buy stuff, whatever it is you're doing with your money, you're playing the money game. And if you don't know the rules, you are going to get absolutely done over. So the most important thing you could do when it comes to money is realize you're playing a game, learn the rules, and learn how to win. Because once you've won, that's when you can stop playing. Again, link below for that episode. Check it out. Lesson number 7, time goes quick. I remember when my dad turned 60, he pointed to his head and he said, "Up here, still 30. My 9 used to say, my 9 is my grandma, she used to say that every year goes by quicker. And as someone who's lived 41 years, I would say that is true. So make the most of your time. There's a bit of a theme there, isn't it? Make the most of your time here. Number 8, buying assets that will pay you money is one of the best things you can do with your money. buy freedom. If you're spending everything that you have on consumption items, things that are going to go down in value, then you will never make financial progress. If you want to make financial progress, you need to buy assets that will pay you money. So that includes buying stocks, buying property, something that will provide for you without you having to do extra work for it. That is one of the keys to winning the money game. Number 9, don't go into debt for dumb things. This is something I am fortunate enough not to have learnt the hard way firsthand, but I notice and I see other people going into debt to buy dumb things like spending £1,500 on a 1-year-old's birthday party that the child will never remember, when all the child wants to do is just have a little plastic spoon and kind of shove that around his face. Don't spend money going into debt for things that will go down in value. If you're going to go into debt for things that will pay you, like property. Number 10, being prepared for eternity is the only thing that matters. There's a very intentional reason why I say make the most of your time here on earth. It's because our time here on earth is short. It's like a mist. It will be here today, gone tomorrow. It will disappear faster than we realize. Read lesson 7. We prepare for all sorts of things. We prepare for food, eating food for the next week. We might prepare for a big birthday that's coming up. We might prepare for a holiday that we're going to go on. We're going to plan ahead, think about what we're going to do for 5 years' time, 10 years' time. What are you going to do in your career? But how far out can we realistically plan? And how about planning for eternity? What happens when we move on from this earth into eternity? Are you ready for it? Number 11, single parenting is blimmin' hard, and it should be avoided if at all possible. I've mentioned in a podcast episode before, a couple of years ago, I had 2 weeks where my wife was working, she was leaving at 6:30 in the morning, getting home at 8:30 at night, and then having to work when she got home. And I basically was in charge of the kids for 2 entire weeks back to back. And that was blimmin' hard. We were in London, and so we were away from our usual routine, and it was hard work, and I was exhausted at the end of 2 weeks. And I'm so thankful that I have a mother to my children that can help and can burden the responsibility and share responsibility. I've seen so many single parents that are just struggling and finding it hard. And I'm not saying at all that single parents don't do a great job. Lots of single parents I know do an absolutely amazing job raising their kids. But it's not easy. It's not straightforward. And it does mean they have sacrifices they have to make in other areas of their life. And obviously, it is not always possible to avoid that. The reason why it's linked to number 10 is a family close to where we live. Recently, the husband died, and he was, I think, around 40, if not just a little bit younger, leaving mum with 2 kids, and that is so hard, so hard. And if it can be avoided, it should be avoided. Number 12, money is meaningless. It's made up. If you don't believe me, do a little bit of research into how money is created. What is money? It's all just numbers on a screen. Now, obviously, it enables us to do various things. It enables us to have a roof over our head. It enables us to buy food and provide for our family and have fun and enjoy life. But it is all made up. And as soon as we realize that, we realize how fleeting it is, how easily it disappears, and how If we want anything of real value, we need to look beyond money. Number 13, marriage takes two things. It takes commitment and it takes work. If you want to stay married, you're going to have to work at it. But it starts with two people committing to, we are going to be committed to this marriage as long as we're both living. And then we're going to work blimmin' hard at it to make sure that we can honour that commitment. Number 14, if you don't make a plan for your life, you'll be given one by society. Most of us have been through school. Some of us have been to university and gotten jobs after that. And most of us have just prescribed to this idea of you go to school, you get a good job, you work until you're 65, 67, 70, 72, 75. You'll get a state pension, or maybe it'll be means tested by then. You won't get one. And you can just retire and enjoy the tail end of your life. That is the script that society has written for us. And if you don't decide for yourself that that is not something you want to do, then you need to make a plan for doing something differently. Number 15, frugality is an important starting point on your money journey. Frugality, the ability to live on very little money, to keep costs down, to keep expenses low, is an incredibly important skill to learn. If you are a college student, a university student, and you've been used to living a life which is probably of a lower standard in terms of the food and the activities that you're able to do than somebody who's got a job earning 40, 50,000 pounds a year, whatever it might be, then if you keep living like that when you get your first job, if you keep living frugally, if you keep living well below your means when you get a job and you start putting away those extra hundreds of pounds into investments that will grow over time, then that means you will be well ahead of the curve when it comes to your finances later down the line. Frugality is also an important skill to have, and I call it a skill because it is something that you can learn, a muscle that you can flex, so to speak, is that if you do end up in a situation where you have to earn less, or you end up earning less because you've been made unemployed and the only job that you can get is something that pays a little bit less. If you are frugal, if you can make do, if you can mend things, if you can repair things rather than buy things new, then that will make that transition much, much easier. If you are always spending up to, or sometimes more than, what you earn, then you will always be in financial difficulty. Number 16, but you have to graduate from that mindset of frugality, but not too early. At some point, you may realize that doing absolutely everything for yourself because it is cheaper than asking somebody else or paying somebody else to do it, then you'll find that that will end up limiting what you can do in life. I'm not saying don't try and do as much as you can for yourself, because again, that is a wonderful skill to have. But you need to be able to assess situations and figure out when is it best to pay someone to do this, or when is it best to pay a little bit extra to save a little bit of time, or when is it better to pay a little bit extra to benefit my health, or whatever it might be. And if you spend your life always living in a frugal way, you miss out on some of the joys that come with spending money. Money can bring about some incredible experiences, but if we are too tightly bound to our frugal identity, then spending money can be difficult. But don't do it too early. Learn that skill, flex that skill, and keep coming back to it every once in a while. Number 17, this is a little bit of a curveball. This is something that I've been considering, and then when I read it explicitly, in a book called 10 Things You Need to Know About Money. I thought, yes, that's put to words what I am kind of thinking about here. And it's this. The only people who will survive in hyperinflation are people who provide their own food. We can save, we can invest, we can prepare for the future, we can plan and think, well, I'll save this much, I'll have this much money, I can do this and this and this in the future. But like I said earlier, money is made up, it can disappear. Any number of things can come and decimate our savings. Every year, the government steals from us at least 2% by inflation, sometimes more, sometimes 10%, sometimes more. And in some countries, inflation has gotten so mad that money is essentially worthless. I look at places like Venezuela and see how what was once a rich country, now people living subsistence lifestyles. Just lawyers and doctors and teachers that have lost everything because the financial system has collapsed, and the only thing they can do to survive is to farm, to grow their own food. And if we are already providing our own food for ourselves, if we can provide what we need for ourselves, for our families, then essentially it doesn't really matter if the financial system around us falls apart. And again, this comes down to creating more than consuming. Putting your energies into learning to grow things and actually growing things, even if you just start small with a few herbs, with a few vegetables, maybe a little fruit tree or a fruit bush. If you start with something little, it can provide an immense amount of satisfaction. Gardeners, I think, are some of the most satisfied people in life. Gardening is something my wife does to zone out, to get into the flow state, to just not think about anything else apart from the moment that she is in. And so if we can learn to garden and provide for ourselves, then that's even better. Number 18, life works better with constraints. You may have heard me mention on the podcast a chap called Seth Godin, and Seth Godin talks about how life needs constraints. And if you've ever played ice hockey on a frozen lake, you will understand why the ice hockey rink that you see on TV has edges, it has boundaries, it has limitations, because you don't want to be skating for miles after a puck as soon as it's gone past you. And life is like that. Life works better with constraints. This is one of the harder lessons that I've had to learn. I love the fact that I can, for the most part, do the things that I want to do with the people that I want to do them with, but I can't do everything. When I first quit my job as a teacher, I suddenly discovered I had basically all of the time that I could possibly want. I had all this time and almost an infinite list of things that I wanted to do. And I couldn't do them all. I couldn't fit everything that I wanted to do into the time that I had, even though I had all the time possible available to me. And so I needed some constraints. I needed to say, well, I can focus on this, but I need to turn that down. And it is probably one of the hardest lessons for me to learn, because I love doing new things. I love doing varying activities. I love learning different things. I love learning languages. I love learning all the skills of the ancient people, like brewing beer and foraging and fermenting and bread baking and mushroom hunting, all those kind of things. And I realized that I can't do absolutely everything. And so building in some constraints, some rules for myself has to be done. Number 19, it's better when those constraints are ones that you've put in place. We all have constraints. For some of us, the constraints are, I have to go to work, so I don't have the time to do this or that. Or I only earn this much money. I only have this much money left at the end of the month, so I can only do this or that. Or I have a job, so My boss tells me what to do, so I can't do this or I can't do that. And when somebody else imposes the constrictions and the constraints, that is when resentment and dissatisfaction can come in. If you can control the constraints, if you are the one that put the constraints in place, then that is really satisfying. Number 20, stop caring what people think of you, unless you care about them. I've been fairly fortunate in my life that I've never really cared about what other people think about me. If anybody's had a problem with me, well, I'd say, that's their problem. I don't have to care about them. They can just sort themselves out. I don't need to do anything about that. And to a greater extent, I think that is true. And I would encourage people, more and more people, to stop caring about what other people think. Trying to teach my daughter about not being embarrassed of strangers when I'm, doing my crazy dad dancing or singing High School Musical at the top of my voice in town. Don't be embarrassed about what other people think about you. Don't care what other people think about you. And I've taken that too far to the extreme in some ways, where I've brought that into relationships where I actually care about people, where I actually do need to care about what people think, and how people think about me and how I think about them does affect my life and affects, the people that I love. Number 21, always be the first to apologize to your spouse. I put this one in because over the years, we've been married now, my wife and I, for almost 20 years. It's 19 years next month. And we've done some courses for young married people to come along and to just get some support, because marriage can be tough. Marriage, especially the first years, can be extremely difficult. So we've run various groups over the years and gotten young married couples together to try and support them through what is a really difficult time. And one of the things that I say on that course is, be the first one to apologize to your spouse. Now, like you may have picked up from the previous lesson, stop caring about what other people think, I am not particularly good at apologizing. I always think that the problem lies with the other person. And as a teenager in my early 20s, my early years of marriage, I always thought that if there was a problem, then it wasn't my problem. It was the other person's problem, or it was my wife's problem. But I have realized and come to appreciate that actually there is always some element of something that you have done, some way you have reacted that has contributed to the situation, even if you don't understand it. So I didn't understand for a long time when I would say something like, this dinner needs more garlic in it. I would say, that's just what I mean. I mean, this dinner could do with some more garlic. Whereas my wife would take offense and see it as a personal criticism of her cooking abilities. And I didn't really pick up on that. And I would think, well, why is she being miserable? Why is she being moody? Why is she being grumpy with me? And I didn't see the problem. I didn't see the problem from what I had done. But over the years, I have come to appreciate there's always some part of the way that I've acted or the way that I have spoken, even if I think, no, there's nothing here. There's always something. And always being the first one to apologize puts you in a place of humility and makes your spouse feel valued. So there we go, number 21. Always be the first to apologize to your spouse. As expected, things are getting a little bit long. So I'm going to wrap up there and say see you next time, ready for lessons number 22 to 41.